And it's, part of my passion of helping them reconnect to their being and reconnect to their intuition. And you might not think that that has a lot to do with fertility, but it's huge in fertility, because that whole pelvic region, it needs flow. It needs, not just blood flow, but like energetic flow in order to be able to conceive and maintain a healthy pregnancy and baby and all of that. So there's a lot there.
Welcome to the Fire, Soul, and Grace podcast. I'm Dr. Kristi Tompkins, functional medicine practitioner and transformational coach. If you are looking to up-level your health in body, mind, and spirit, scale your business, improve your relationships, and create a life you love, you are in the right place. Every other week, we'll bring you a topic and feature incredible guests worldwide. Be inspired and feel empowered to live your life with greater joy, meaning, and purpose. I'm excited you're here. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Fire, Soul, and Grace podcast. I'm Dr. Kristi Tompkins, and today I am really excited for my guest, Dr. Jenna, and I should have actually confirmed how to say your last name. How do you say your last name?
Rayachoti.
Rayachoti. Okay, good thing I didn't try to guess on that one. Welcome, Dr. Jenna. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Kristi?
I'm doing great too. So, Dr. Jenna is a naturopathic doctor like myself, and you are currently practicing in Washington State. Jenna and I went to the same university, Bastyr University. I think we graduated at different times, but that's where we have our historical commonality there, living in the Pacific Northwest. And we also are members of the same code business mastermind group with Dr. Megan Walker. So I am really excited to have Jenna join me today. So let's dive in. So Jenna, tell me a little bit about your practice, what your specialty is, what you love to focus on, and what kind of fulfillment you get out of that.
So this is such a question that should be so simple, and I feel like I'm just evolving every day as a person and a practitioner. But what I really love to do is just help women understand their hormones, connect with their bodies, return to themselves, and just really understand and take kind of charge of what's happening in their bodies. I focus on fertility and pregnancy and postpartum. And I also love to see women in perimenopause. So it's kind of the whole thing. And I'm just like I said, it's just ever evolving.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is not only are you professionally, and I'm sure personally evolving too, is that as women go through each decade, starting from puberty or menarche, that your teen years versus your 20s, your 30s. So your life changes, but your hormones also change. And your hormones, as you know, they're going to be heavily influenced by your stress and your diet and your relationships and your job and all these things, all these life things that we are immersed in that will affect our hormones. And I think a lot of women don't fully grasp what happens with each phase of their life, each decade. And certainly, I specialize in women's health and hormones too, and I hear it all the time, like, wow, I didn't used to be this way. Or, oh yeah, I've had this for most of my life, thinking severe menstrual pain is normal, or getting a headache before their period is normal, and it's not. And so coming to somebody like you or myself or any other naturopathic functional medicine doctor that knows about women's health can really shine a light on the mysteries of what happens with our hormones.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you mentioned fertility. So what kind of I guess what's the word I'm thinking of? What kind of incidence or number of fertility cases do you see, or infertility cases do you see in your practice, and how common is that today?
Well, it's quite common with, I feel like, the population that I work with. It's quote unquote like the older population. It's like the, our medicine and our society likes to term it as a geriatric pregnancy, which is just the worst term in the world. But it's women who have really wanted to pursue their career and really find themselves. And they've maybe waited a little bit like longer, but it's not even like long, right? But it's a time that then, they're thinking, okay, am I going to have trouble getting pregnant? Some women do have trouble getting pregnant in their, maybe late 30s, early 40s. And so that's infertility. Like that whole topic is a whole nother can of worms to open up. But we definitely see infertility rates on the rise for sure. And yeah, I think I'm also seeing more and more women that aren't necessarily, they haven't yet started trying, but they know, like, I want to start trying in 3 months and 6 months. And, I want to know what I can do right now to, with egg quality and get my body into a place where it's going to really be able to support a pregnancy. So I do see a bit of that too, which is really exciting. That's like really exciting for me, because then I know I have some time and some space to work with hormones and really optimize all the different things in the body that we're working on. But yeah, I do see a fair bit of that in my practice.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that you said geriatric pregnancy, and that could be 35, that could be 37.
It's
and I'm
ridiculous.
sure a lot of women are like, no, I'm fine. I'm still getting a period every 4 weeks, and my periods are lasting a few days, and I don't have a whole lot of symptoms. Why is this still happening? And I don't specialize in fertility, but I have colleagues like yourself that do specialize, and I would say that probably one of the more common. There are so many different factors involved here, but would you say that chronic stress in our society today is one of the biggest factors in infertility?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that I work in Washington State, and I do see quite a bit of women who are, working at Amazon and working at Microsoft, and, have those higher up, CEO or sort of like leadership positions in their companies, or, in their career path. And they're under a lot of stress. And I think it's also a topic that some people are resistant to hearing about and talking about, because they're like, yeah, I know I have to like reduce my stress. But absolutely, like we can get into like the science of it and what it actually stress is doing on that HPA axis, and then, how that affects the thyroid, how that affects the ovaries, and all of those, obviously are playing a role in fertility. But I think maybe even more so is this idea that, I help women sort of move out of their head and move out of that go, go, go mindset. And they sort of transfer that mindset into their fertility and their health of like, okay, what are the supplements I should be taking? How should I be eating? What should I be, doing day to day? And it's like, whoa. Like, do you know what's happening? Do you connect with the lower half of your body? Do you move your hips? Do you, so like getting them in their bodies and getting into a flow state with their menses for one, but then also just in the way that they're thinking about, but not even thinking, it's really removing that thinking piece, and it's that being. And so getting women to really connect with that piece is huge. And it's, part of my passion of helping them reconnect to their being and reconnect to their intuition. And you might not think that that has a lot to do with fertility, but it's huge in fertility, because that whole pelvic region, it needs flow. It needs, not just blood flow, but like energetic flow in order to be able to conceive and maintain a healthy pregnancy and baby and all of that. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, and not just like you said, the physical movement, and of course, we have to address the physical. We have to look at the hormone levels and their diet, and of course their stress and what's going on, but also just that kind of that mind-body connection of feeling grounded, feeling safe, and whether
Yes.
it's a meditative practice, a yoga, or what do they call it, earthing, where you're actually outside in the earth, and now we're coming up on spring, summer solstice here. And so like just getting outside and,
Yes, getting hands in the dirt, like literally
yeah, or your
connecting with the
feet.
earth.
Yeah.
Or your
Or
feet.
if you live along the coast, you can put your feet in the sand or the
In the
ocean or a
water, yeah.
river. I live in Colorado now, so it's like I don't have access to the ocean necessarily, but I can go to a lake or a stream or something like that and just really kind of connecting. And it's so hard for a lot of people. I don't know if it's more difficult for men, but for women who are hard driving, ambitious, feeling like they have to wear many hats, or maybe they do wear many hats in their life, have many roles, it's hard to. I just listened to a talk last night at a women's networking group and about like being able to fill your own cup, and the self-care of course is not selfish. It's you're literally like doing what you can to replenish your own emotional, physical, spiritual reserve so that you can give to other people. And what's interesting is when sometimes if you let go or try to release some of the stress or the control and especially with fertility, I can only imagine how much women want to be in control of making that happen. And it's just simply a process that you can't make happen. It just happens naturally. And you hear a lot with women that go on vacation or they kind of quote, let go, they kind of release it. And then all of a sudden something beautiful or miraculous happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the piece of, you were like, I don't know if men experience this or not. And I think the thing with, years ago when, just feminism and women back into the workplace and women doing not just housework and being moms and those roles are, not to belittle them at all, like those are very powerful and important roles in our society. And for women that are interested in working outside the home or being, entrepreneurs or being CEOs or being, leaders in their communities, it's, we're sort of, I like to say that like, I like to encourage women to think and act and be like a woman, not like a man. Men do not have the same natural hormonal fluctuations. They have a little bit, but not as much as we do. And really, I'm on this, my own like personal deep dive, personal like journey and reflection through my menstrual cycle right now. And really tapping into how can I use my menstrual cycle to almost like my advantage and really get the wisdom and the power from it as an entrepreneur, knowing when, and this relates to sort of like all things that, women are interested in doing, whether that's running a business or having a baby or just being, is learning the seasons of their cycle. And not just like, we learn about like, oh, the follicular phase and the luteal phase and when I'm ovulating and when I'm on my period, but there's actually like seasons with the menstrual cycle. And when it's, when we're on our period, it's our winter. It's a time of letting go. It's a time to give ourselves permission to rest. It's not necessarily this go, go, go time. And sometimes that's not possible with, work or life or whatever's going on. But I always encourage women, okay, if it's not possible to like take out that stress or take out the go, 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 what can you double down on? Those self-care pieces that you can double down on in your winter when you're on your menses, making sure that you're getting to bed by whatever o'clock that you want to, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock even, making sure you're nourishing your body, making sure that you're, or like one piece that you're going to do daily throughout your period to really nourish your system. And then same with like premenstrual time and the fall is, really that's a time of like there's deep intuition coming through there. It's also a time where we're like really speaking our truth, and it's time to like cut out the things that are not working for us in our life. And so those are two seasons, the like premenstrual and then when we're on our period, that society likes to tell us that those are like bad times. So, I'm on my period. Oh, I'm premenstrual. And this is, I just don't want to I just feel, And it's like, okay, let's change the mindset around this and even the expectations of who we are as a woman during that time. We're not less than by any means, but it's a time to really slow down and really return to those pieces that, it's going inward and really finding the things that are going to really nourish your whole system. And I think when we start kind of tapping into that, it can really help us kind of just connect to our whole being and really change kind of how we're approaching life, business, fertility, whatever it may be. So that was kind of a long-winded thing, but I just think it's so important.
I love all of it. And I think the first step, that was beautifully said. I think the first step is awareness of, because there's, as you probably have experienced, we have the internet today. We have Google, and everybody is on their phone or on their devices to try to look up, this is what I'm feeling. What might this be? I think the first step is awareness of, okay, yeah, I am on my period and therefore I'm going to be more tired, or it might require more sleep, or my mood might be fluctuating quite a bit, or I might need to tell my husband or my partner or maybe my best friend, hey, I'm not feeling that great today. I'm a little bit irritable, or I'm more sensitive, and just, and sometimes, people are very intuitive. Men are intuitive as well. And they can usually sense like, okay, some things she might be maybe at this phase of her cycle. So the awareness key is to know this is what's happening, this is what I need to do. And it's really about not only adaptation of, okay, maybe instead of doing like a CrossFit or Orange Theory class today, maybe I'm going to do a yoga class. Maybe I'm going to go for a hike instead. And then I can get right back into those higher energizing, strengthening workouts, and so forth. And also grace and compassion of, yeah. And that's so hard to do. I mean, we can show compassion and empathy and grace with other people. That's somewhat expected, and it's easier to do, but to do that with ourselves, I think is still a big struggle for women. And I love that the season analogy that you gave with the menstrual cycle, and the cycle from month to month, and kind of throughout the year. When you think about it's springtime here and it's gorgeous. Just a few months ago, I mean, I remember looking outside at these trees outside my window here, and it was winter. It was the dead of winter. There was snow, and it was kind of pretty because it was snowing outside, but these trees were they look like statues. Like there was not a leaf on any of the branches. It was like just like almost literally frozen in time. And I thought, nature knows, okay, this is not the time to flourish and to be abundant and to have lively energy. This is the time to go inward. And when you think about nature that way and kind of connect or somehow resemble that with yourself, I don't know, it helps us to kind of follow in alignment with the earth and with the seasons.
Absolutely. And we are the earth, it's not even an analogy. Like we are made of all the things that earth is made of. And so it's just, it's so powerful to kind of tap into that.
I saw on your website, and I think in your bio section, that I think it was during naturopathic medical school that you had gone through amenorrhea, which is something known as when you stop getting a period, or maybe this was your undergrad, but it's some time in your life where you were under a lot of stress, and your body basically was like, nope, we're this is not a time to bring life into the world, to procreate, similar to women with infertility, and that you stopped getting a period. And I actually went through the same thing. Interesting. In fact, I was just thinking about that this morning before I reviewed your bio. Like I went through the same thing too, and I think there's a that's beautiful. It may not seem beautiful, but it's a natural process that happens when your body is feeling threatened or under attack or scared or fear, or there's too much going on, that the reproductive system, the communication between the brain and the reproductive system, the ovaries, it just kind of says, nope, we're going to go into hibernation mode. We're going to pause this normal abundance of hormones and that menstrual cycle for right now until the threat is gone. What was your experience with that, and what did you find helped you during that time?
Yeah, so that actually happened to me twice. It happened to me when I went to college. So you're right, it happened in undergrad. And it was a time that I got really into exercise. I was also thinking that I wanted to become a vegetarian. So I was really changing my diet, but I wasn't, I think I just didn't have the education around what my body was like needing at the time. And so, yeah, I mean, I was like, there was so many things that I was restricting and really taking away from my system. And, you know, when that happens, of course, our hormones are the first thing to, you know, our body, when it's not feeling safe and nourished, it's gonna, you know, reproduction is not necessarily like a thing that we, I mean, yeah, it's a thing that we need for the survival of the species, but as far as the body goes, like, you know, it's one of the first things that's gonna get interrupted. And so that's when, well, okay, so that was one time. And then the second time was when I was in naturopathic medical school, and also, you know, a best year, and also under a ton of stress and so much going on. And, you know, just feeling like, you know, setting these ridiculous expectations of myself. And I lost my period at that time too. And it was kind of a beautiful time to go through that, because I was in school learning about it, and I was surrounded by these amazing healers and people that, you know, could really like take me under their wing. And, you know, I saw a teacher, a mentor of mine, and she ended up, you know, just really educating me about the menstrual cycle and how stress influences our hormones. And so just going through that experience while I was also learning about how to help other women in the future to do this was just so amazing and powerful. And so I just started working on some really simple things. So when I was in college, I actually was prescribed birth control by my gynecologist back home. And, you know, she was like, this is the only tool that I know to help with that. And I have so many things to say about that. But and then in naturopathic school, I started walking the talk, like doing all the things that I was learning in school, and starting to slow down a little bit, changing some expectations around myself. I started some meditation. I started walking in the beautiful woods that we were surrounded by, that so many of us didn't take advantage of walking through St. Ed's. I mean, yeah, I was just like, no, this is why this school is placed in this beautiful park. Like, take advantage of that. And just really making sure that I was nourishing, you know, myself through nutrition, and then did acupuncture and kind of just dabbled in a whole bunch of different things. So
yeah, that sounds very similar to me. I had reached out to a women's health naturopathic doctor, Dr. Tori Hudson in Portland, and I was, of course, in Washington at the time, but I took a drive down there, and I was like, I need help. Like, I'm in school. I think I was halfway through. And I was like, I need help. I need guidance. And she put me on this beautiful program. And I think our follow-up was by phone. And again, like you said, walking the talk, I got acupuncture and just a variety of things. And then slowly but surely, it actually did come back. Yes, the stress was still there, but I was able to, again, kind of going back to the word adapt. My body was like, okay, yes, there's still the threat, kind of like the lion circling around you, or kind of off in the distance. Like, it's still there, but you're able to manage it much better with some nourishing tools and nutrition and acupuncture and meditation, or maybe cutting back on some of because the exercise is important, but sometimes there can be the high stress exercise. And I used to be a runner. I think you mentioned running, I think, or maybe you didn't. I used to be a runner when I was younger for, you know, miles and miles and miles every week. And my body fat percentage got so low, and I stopped getting a period, and I was like, what? And of course, you know, when you're young, you don't think much, you don't understand what's happening. You're just like, oh, that's interesting. I haven't gotten it in a few months. But there are certain activities that can be very depleting for some women, and it really helps to go to somebody who is experienced with this and seasoned with this to say, hey, let's have you maybe switch this up a little bit, and maybe let's have you do this instead, and maybe once a week you go running, but maybe not, 5 days a week.
Yeah. And I think you touched on a piece of, you know, when we have the lions surrounding us, and like we were both in school and under so much stress. And so that was an instance where, you know, I guess we could have just quit school. Like, that could have been an option, but it's same with, you know, a lot of our patients. It's like, well, they could just quit their job or to remove the stress. And that's what I think the message that we hear all the time is like, reduce the stress, but sometimes that's not possible, right? Like, we still wanted to pursue this program, and people still want to continue doing the jobs that they have, even though they're contributing to so much stress. So it's building the stress resilience, right? Building the adaptation, the resilience, the adaptogens are called adaptogens. They're helping us, adapt and build that resilience so that we can, deal with the lions that are encircling us. And I think it's also important to remember too that, I have this analogy that like we don't just go out and run a marathon and expect our body to just be able to run that marathon, right? Like we train for that marathon, and it's the same in the nervous system. We have to train our nervous system to be able to deal with those big stressful moments. And we do that in like daily practice. And so when we're, doing a 5-minute mindfulness or, biofeedback or whatever it may be, that's part of the training of the nervous system so that when we are in a big stressful event, we can actually adapt and be resilient and deal with that. So anyway,
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of saying it. And like you said, I think a lot of people relate to training the physical body, or I guess, the physical body. When it comes to the different internal body systems, like the nervous system, the reproductive system, the cardiovascular system, it really is, especially the nervous system, because it's one of those really, really, really sensitive systems in our body that's brilliant and has such wisdom, but also being aware of, again, the awareness of, oh gosh, this is the activity I'm engaged in. This might lead to this, and then this might lead to this, and this is going to be some consequences for my life, my body, my health, my sleep. And just being aware of what you're doing and kind of maybe stopping that or interrupting that pattern if you can, if you're aware in the moment. Sometimes we're not always aware because we're in high stress, but being able to kind of look at ourselves, kind of almost like looking at ourselves objectively from the outside instead of subjectively, and being like, okay, I might need to reframe this situation. Like you said, naturopathic medical school, like, I definitely thought about quitting. It was, especially when my health was affected, but I, that perseverance and that tenacity to keep going. Like, a lot of people, they can't quit their job. They have to provide for their families, or they've got a mortgage, or they've got a parent that they now had to take into their home to care for their parents. And they have to do this. And it's really, like I said, using the tools that you can to help you mitigate that period a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to bring up, you mentioned something a little bit ago about birth control pills or birth control methods. The Mirena IUD doesn't have to be an oral pill. Something that is so commonly prescribed, and yes, you're right, it is commonly prescribed for women who, I just spoke with a client the other day, like either they're not getting a period, or it's heavy bleeding, or they're getting headaches, or they have all these symptoms that something isn't quite right, but it's a very quick standard of care prescription and treatment, quote treatment. And yes, in some cases it does help. It can help with your skin. It can help with your PMS symptoms. It can help regulate for sure, because we know that does help. And certainly if you're trying to prevent pregnancy because you're just not either ready to bring a child in, or that's just not part of your life path, that's okay too.
Right.
But coming off of that for a lot of women is very difficult. What was your experience with that, or what have you seen with your clients coming off of birth control?
Coming off of birth control? Yeah. So, I myself, when I was on it for a short time when I was in college after I didn't get my period, and then my doctor had prescribed to me, like I had mentioned, and I just felt really terrible on it. And, birth control has changed a lot in the past 20 years. And so it's, there's lower amounts of hormones in the birth control now than there was 20 years ago. But I just felt awful on it. And I just stopped it. And to be perfectly honest, I don't really remember if I had, I think my period, obviously my period eventually returned. And I think that I had just changed. I think I was probably doing some of my own reading, but it definitely wasn't something that my doctor was helping me with. Okay, here are some other tools that you can use. And I think that's the thing. Yeah, so that's the thing that I see with my patients or people that I'm helping sort of come off of birth control is, I'm not anti-birth control. I think that it can serve, like you said, a purpose in people's lives, in their hormones. But the way that it's prescribed today is that, I mean, it takes over hormonal control over your body, and it can also serve as like a Band-Aid over symptoms that can otherwise be like insight into what's going on in the body, right? And so, but if we've been on it for a long time, then, you know, ripping the Band-Aid off and just like, okay, what's going to happen? Like all the things that were experienced before of, you know, heavy bleeding or whatever it may be, you know, are likely to come up again. And so so I think that one of the big things that I would love to see more doctors that prescribe birth control do is education around some of the underlying issues that are going on that are present, causing the symptoms that birth control is being prescribed for, whether that's for PMS or whether PCOS or endometriosis. Like birth control can be helpful in those places, but in those conditions, but also what else can a woman be doing to help? And then what are the things that birth control itself is contributing to? So oral birth control causes nutrient deficiencies. It can contribute to increased inflammation in the body or increased insulin resistance. So, and like we're just not told that, right? It totally tanks our libido. It can actually contribute to more depression. And for young women, there's a much higher risk of suicide and severe depression being put on the birth control pill. So anyway, so I think that when women are thinking about coming off of it, it's considering working with, a functional medicine practitioner, integrative naturopathic doctor that has knowledge around some of these things that the birth control pill is contributing to in their system, and implementing some nutrition and diet and lifestyle pieces that can help to mitigate some of that. And then after a few cycles of that, then, getting off of birth control and then continuing those pieces. So we're actually addressing the underlying issues that are present that are causing that hormonal imbalance.
Yeah. And I think you know that, I know that, and our colleagues know that. And I think a lot of, I can't speculate, but I think a lot of mainstream doctors or nurse practitioners or physician assistants that are seeing multiple patients a day, and not being able to spend that much time with them, I think a lot of them are like, my hands are tied. I either just simply don't have the time or the knowledge or the information, unless they kind of branch out and start getting into functional medicine training, or doing their own personal reading, maybe because maybe some of these female healthcare professionals are going through the same thing. And so I think a lot of them just they can't, or maybe it's not allowed. Although I think you probably can recommend some nutritional advice, but I think that would be a big shift in healthcare, to be able to say, hey,
Huge.
I'm going to do this for you to help you for right now. You're not meant to be on this for years. I've seen clients where they've literally been on birth control for 20 years, maybe minus a year or two for pregnancy, but literally 20 plus years. And it's like, and then having them come off of that, their body is just a mess. And they might think, oh no, I'm not going through perimenopause. I have an IUD. I'm on birth control. And they're 45 years old or 48. And they're like, no, I don't have any symptoms. I'm like, I bet you would if you came off of that pill or that IUD.
Right, exactly.
And so I think that's the number one reason why people seek out something outside of the conventional healthcare box, because it is a box. And it's something that is really meant to be more acute care, as you and I know, and you're not going to get the answers. You're not going to get the full scope, the full comprehensive plan, and kind of a bird's eye view at like what's happening with all the different body systems and what's happening in your life in the way that you and I and so many of our colleagues can do, because it just simply doesn't fit in the mainstream care with the time spent. And I do think a lot of doctors are leaving, and nurses and other mainstream conventional healthcare professionals and practitioners are leaving because of the way things have been run and the way things are, the way that they are caring for patients. And either they're getting into a completely different industry, or a lot of them are branching out into functional medicine because they are also frustrated.
Yeah.
And so we still have quite a ways to go with regard to having that educational piece for mainstream medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, no one enters medicine and goes, I only want to see patients for 15 minutes and only prescribe medications, and that's it. It's definitely being dictated by, gosh, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, their hands are tied. It's not like the way that they want to be practicing.
I want to dive into, because we've talked a little bit before this podcast recording, a little bit about transition, like the life transitions that women go through, of course, the different phases of your cycle, but also just life transition, like having a baby and postpartum, and then also perimenopause, where there's the hormones are really starting to change. And actually let's focus on perimenopause, because I feel like that's one of my specialties, and I think you specialize in that too. And it's one of those times where it can vary from woman to woman when she starts to have symptoms, and a lot of times she doesn't even realize she's having symptoms, or she doesn't know that it's correlated or connected with her hormones dropping or fluctuating. But it typically can last a few years to maybe 10 years and beyond. But it also happens to be at a time in a woman's life, usually her 40s ish, when she might be maybe going through a divorce or a job change or a career change, or her children are now getting older and getting into college and leaving the home. Maybe there's a parent that is not doing well, and it's coming at a time where it's like your hormones are dropping, which lessens that ability to adapt to stress.
Or
But
they're
it's
in
also,
total chaos,
yeah,
right?
and then it's like the perfect storm, which
Perfect
I think
storm,
it
yeah.
takes a lot of women by surprise. What's been your experience with that, and what are you recommending to your clients to help them during that time in their life?
Yeah, so I mean, it is such. I mean, you just said all of the things, right? It's usually not just hormones. It's that they're going through big like career changes, or they're becoming empty nesters, or divorce, or whatever it may be. And gosh, there's just so much happening, and I think that the education, it's changing, but the education around around perimenopause and how we actually, like, the education that's available and how we educate or how we support women during that time conventionally is really, really lacking, but it's changing, right? And so I think, I was just leading this workshop in the town that I live in, and so many women in the circle, I think, are in perimenopause, and just some of the things that they were talking about and experiencing. I mean, it affects every system in the body, like significant mood changes, right? Even like waking and cravings, and of course, menses start changing. And so there's just like a million different things that are happening. And I think it's also, back to this, like, go, go, go. I mean, a lot of women that I see in perimenopause and in my practice are like at a point where they're at this point where, yeah, like you said, like they're going through a divorce or a career change, or kids are leaving, and it's the first time that they're kind of asking themselves, or in a position where they feel like they can ask themselves, what do I truly desire? What do I truly want for myself in my life? That is a huge question. And it often brings up immense anxiety and feelings and negative emotions and all these things, because it's like, well, crap, I've literally never sat with that question before. I've never had time to, or I've never felt like I've been able to ask myself that question. But I think that in itself, and having that whole conversation around, like, what do you want the next, however many years of your life to look like, and that's a big transition, and life is sort of handing you this opportunity to really return to yourself and reconnect, and really, really, like, what are your true desires?
Yeah, and not just, that's beautiful, thank you. And whether it's perimenopause and your periods have now stopped, and maybe you are leaving your full-time corporate job and you're going to start the business that you truly love, whatever that happens to be. Or maybe you are going separate ways with the partner that you've been with since college, and now you're embarking on a new phase of your life. It can be quite scary, because I think naturally the human body, we don't like a whole lot of change, a whole lot of drastic change. And sometimes we make the changes and sometimes life makes the changes for us. And that
Right.
kind of
Yes.
forces us into a space of kind of not only chaos or quote chaos and stress, but also just kind of that unknown, that river of change, as sometimes people call it, where you're just, you're not going back to where you were, but you don't quite know where you're going. And it's that beautiful time of contemplation and meditation and maybe spending a little bit more time with yourself, which I was just talking to a client this morning about that. And she's exactly at that phase where her kids are getting older and they're moving out, and she's got one child left in high school, and she's getting older and she's going through hormone changes, and she doesn't quite know what's happening, or she doesn't know on a deeper hormonal level, but she's also I think kind of grieving a little bit. She didn't use those words, but I can understand how it's like a loss of what was in the past, but yet she doesn't quite know what's to come in the future.
Yeah.
And I think having not only somebody to talk to, like a naturopathic functional medicine doctor that understands women's bodies and what's happening, but also a community support. I mean, you just mentioned a circle or like a women's circle, and I've been to a few of those ceremonies, and I'm actually thinking of hosting one myself soon. And I just think even the networking event that I was at last night, we weren't in a circle, but there was a good number of us just connecting, and it wasn't just about business, like here's my business card. It was really about connecting to one another and sharing your stories. And I think that is such an important piece that I have found in my own personal life. Women need to be in the community of other women, especially when you're going through kind of something similar like perimenopause or life changes. Like you need that, not just socially, but like on a physiological level. Like you actually need that to heal.
1,000%. We need it, and we thrive in community. Last night, I taught this 3-part workshop, and last night was the last night, and it was, meant to go like 5:30 to 7 is the time. We did not leave until 9 o'clock. And the only reason we left at 9 o'clock is because all of a sudden this like huge storm rolled in, and we were like, we got to get out of here. But we probably could have been there till 11 o'clock. And we were chatting about, in like the session, we were sort of talking about, hormones, and it was all about like herbs and how herbs can support, just anyway. But the latter half was just all like, it was just about life. Like we just don't, and I think that, we're just women are just, especially if we have kids, if we have so many things going on, we just kind of get swept up in the doing. And I think a lot of us too I myself, like we don't live near family or, and there's pieces of our community that are kind of like just fractured, and we don't spend that time in community with one another. And I think it's so powerful when we just, and it could even be just getting together and sharing our experiences, and especially for women in perimenopause, because there's so many things going on, hearing that someone else is experiencing something similar or something just as chaotic or scary or whatever as you, like how reassuring is that and beautiful that is to share in that experience together and support one another, listen to one another, hold space for one another. And I just really believe that when women sit in a circle, not necessarily a circle, but just when we're in community with one another and get chatting, like we can change the world. So much creativity and ideas and just beautiful things blossom from women being in community.
Yeah, and sharing, and just like you said, just sharing your ideas, sharing your struggles, sharing your wins, your celebrations.
Yes.
The talk that I heard last night was from a female chiropractor who does women's health and hormones, and her talk was on stress. And just from a neuroscience or a neurological perspective, men's brains, they are different. It's still a human brain, but it's the way that they process information and the way that they are in community. And I think a lot of men, generally speaking, of course, can do a lot of things on their own. They can push on through life stressors and kind of do things on their own. And maybe they might need community and connection and talking to people or a therapist or maybe a buddy or whatever. But a lot of times they don't. And I don't know if that's society has said that's not cool to do that, or just simply maybe their brain is like, no, I got this. I actually not only I'm not pretending. I literally have this on my own, and I can deal with this stuff on my own. But with women, when you're going through something stressful or difficult or challenging or traumatizing, or just simply, God, I feel like my mood is just like, I feel like I'm losing my mind right now. Like, what's happening here? I just need to talk to somebody about that. I think that process is healing in itself because our brains require it
Yes.
for that therapeutic process to take place.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think society also, um, you know, we kind of idolize the woman who is like after childbirth or really any time in their life that's doing all the things and, getting back into the workout classes or, gosh, you just are so busy. You've got so much on your plate. And we just really like idolize that person or,
especially on social
society
media,
just,
right?
yeah, especially on social media. Yeah. And we just really like lift that up. And I feel like I'm just on this mission to just change that discourse and change that conversation around like, we don't have to always be that go and doing all the things, and that it's okay to rest and it's okay to connect with one another. And I had my brain like went empty. I was having like a thought of where that was headed connected to what you had just said, but now I've lost it.
That's
but
okay.
Anyway, yeah.
And I think again, kind of going back to the grace, the compassion of like, I just talked to a patient yesterday. She's like, I haven't really fully lost the weight from my last baby, my last pregnancy. And I think there's a lot of shame in that. And yes, like I mentioned a second ago about social media, like there's all these pictures of this is me when I had my baby and this is me however many months later, especially with somebody maybe who is an influencer or a celebrity.
Yes.
And it's like, that's awesome. But that's not the norm. Like you're not going to see that's really common where you've got this like rockin' hard body, 3 months, 4 months later, because it's such a major stress to the body. I mean, it's a beautiful process of carrying a child to full term and delivering this beautiful human being, but it changes the body on every level. And giving yourself that time to really like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And if something's off and something's not quite right and I'm not dropping the weight, or now my hair's falling out, or now I still haven't got my period back, or breastfeeding isn't quite functioning normally, that's when you reach out for help. But
Yeah.
I do think kind of along those same lines is having a community support for like women going through postpartum, whatever. I mean, postpartum, whatever symptoms that might look for you, because that is such a challenging time for a lot of women to go through pregnancy and then to deliver the child and expect that she's going to drop the weight, go back to work, go back to, helping out her kid's school or whatever it is she's supposed to do. It's reminding yourself that like you don't have to do all this based on what you see on social media.
That's right. Society tells us that we're supposed to do all these things. And I think for women in perimenopause too, they've just been given that message their whole lives. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that. Do this for your kids.
Yeah.
Like do the shoulds. And so I think, in perimenopause, postpartum is a beautiful time to just returning to like, F all the shoulds.
Yeah,
like what do
totally.
I want to be doing? And also what are the experiences of other women? I'm a doctor and I love working one-on-one with people, but gosh, I think the power of being in a circle with other women and talking about the experiences is really where the true healing comes from. And that a lot of the times we don't need to be one-on-one with the doctor. We just need to be talking about our experiences with other women.
Yeah, or both.
Or both.
I want to talk a little bit about, as we've got a little bit of time left. So you grew up in Wyoming. I know you live in Washington State. You're a mountain girl, and I love the mountains and the lakes too. You mentioned something, I think, in your bio about how I think it was your father had an influence on you when it came to like botany and medicinal plants and just nature.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that experience growing up.
Oh my gosh. So I grew up in Jackson, Wyoming, and it's very different from the Jackson now. But I mean, So he grew up on a farm in Minnesota, and he's the only one of his family that left Minnesota. And he's like from a family of 13 children. Wow. So it was just like huge dairy farm family, Catholic family. And he moved out to the mountains, and it became his church and his place of like really finding himself. I'm going to get emotional about talking about this, but just growing up, he taught us. Every weekend we were out in the woods, like hiking, skiing, like whatever season it was. And he just was always teaching us about the plants, the animals, just whatever it was. And like really being part of the earth and being a steward of the earth. And I actually got really interested. So he was kind of more of like, and also he's a science nerd, and he studied geology. So he was definitely into that part of it. But I got really interested through learning about plants. Like, what do people do with these plants? Like, yes, they're beautiful, but like, can we also, are there medicinal properties? And I remember really young, just kind of wanting to explore that, and had no idea about naturopathic medicine. But I started reading books on like what Native Americans, how they use different plants as food, as herbs. And so that's where my love for medicine and natural medicine sort of grew from. But it really, it came from this this kind of seed that my dad planted in me very, very early, of just really appreciating and loving the natural world, and knowing like where our place as humans was in that. It was, really special.
That's a beautiful. Is your father still around, or has he?
He is. Okay. Yeah, he totally is still around.
Good.
Yeah. He lives in Colorado, actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a beautiful story of that powerful influence of that's what he loved, and he was like, God, I really hope my kids love this too. And it sounds like you learned so much about the healing power of nature, which we talk about quite often in obviously when we were in school, but we also maybe indirectly talk about that with our clients. Like, there's so much healing power in the beauty around us, the mountains, the hiking, the rivers, the lakes, the plants, in so many medicinal. In fact, I was just thinking about this the other day. I was, because I'm dealing with this cold and cough, and I went online, and I was like, I had run out of honey, because I usually put a little bit of like natural, raw local honey in my tea, but I had run out. And so I thought, I'm going to go, instead of just going to the store, I'm going to see if there's like a local place here in Colorado where I can go get some honey. And I just saw this company. They are based in Colorado, but it was like 3 hours away. I was like, I don't have 3.5 hours to go drive to buy a jar of honey. But it was really cool because the honey was made with osha root. And I was like,
ooh, really?
Yeah. And I thought, oh my God, you remember botanical medicine classes in school, and how it was for me, it was a very special time to not only learn the herbs, but from a scientific perspective, but also to learn about I need honey now, to learn about the herbs, just from a medicinal standpoint, and to be able to make them in the botanical medicine lab classes that we had. And it brought me back to having osha or lomatium or some of those really like deeply like root herbs, and how therapeutic that is. And I thought, wow, I would love to try that honey. I'll probably just have to order it online and have it be shipped to me. But I thought, wow, there's such beauty in or magic. I mean, I don't even know if I want to use the word magic, but there's such this immense healing power of being able to use things from the earth to treat a cough or a cold or your hormones or your gut. I mean, the list goes on and on, as you know. So
absolutely,
it was just a beautiful reminder, and I loved hearing your story.
The soul.
Totally.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you so much, Jenna. I've really, really, really enjoyed this conversation with you. Lots of beautiful pearls of wisdom that you've shared with me and our audience. Where can people find you?
Oh, thank you, Kristi. This has been so much fun. On my website, drjennarayachoti.com. Also, I'm on Instagram. I've been taking a bit of a break from being on there lately, but I'll be back on. It's just dr_Jenna. And then I'm on Facebook as well, Dr. Jenna Rayachoti. That's where I hang.
Yeah, and sometimes you need that break. You need that detox from social media, because then you come back even stronger, because it can be one of those things where it kind of takes hold of you. So taking that break is sometimes essential.
Yes, totally. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenna. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Kristi. Have a good one.
You too.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are solely those of the host and the guest and are not intended to provide, nor are they a suitable substitute for professional care by a doctor, therapist, mental health professional, or other qualified medical professional. Thank you for listening to the Fire, Soul, and Grace podcast. Share this episode with someone in your life. Subscribe to this podcast so you can hear more valuable content on how to live your best life. Be sure to connect with us at firesoulandgracepodcast.com, and please join us in the next episode.